Summers in Europe are no longer what they used to be. Do you remember your childhood, when 30 degrees on the thermometer meant the absolute peak of the holidays and a reason to go to the pool? Today, heat waves that don't drop below 35 degrees for weeks are the new normal. Tropical nights, when the air in your apartment doesn't even move and you toss and turn on a sweaty mattress, have become a symbol of the modern European summer. It's no wonder our approach has changed dramatically. Air conditioning, a device that 15 years ago we mostly knew from American movies or luxury hotels, is rapidly becoming a standard in European households. We want coolness, we want to sleep, we want to function. And so we press the button on the remote control and enjoy that divine stream of ice-cold air. But have you ever thought about what is actually happening in that moment from the perspective of physics? You can't fool the laws of physics with any remote control. Every turn of the compressor, every cooling of your living room by a single degree has its exact price. And I'm not talking about your electricity bill right now. I'm talking about what's happening outside, right outside your window. Are we cooling our homes at the expense of heating things up even more outside in our cities? Aren't we playing with a technological trap that will eventually roast us in our own city? Let's clarify one absolutely crucial thing right at the beginning that many people get wrong. Air conditioning does not produce cold. From the point of view of physics, there is no such thing as cold. Cold is not an entity, it's not some substance that you can produce and pump into a room. Cold is simply the absence of heat, just as darkness is just the absence of light. Heat is energy. It is the kinetic energy of moving molecules. When we want a room to be cooler, it doesn't mean we have to add cold to it, but that we have to get the heat out of there. And how do we do that? This is where the queen of physics comes in, thermodynamics, specifically the principle of the heat pump. An air conditioner does nothing more than literally bucket the heat from the inside to the outside. Imagine it exactly like this. Your room is like a boat taking on water, in our case, heat from the sun and the surrounding air. The air conditioner is a sailor with a bucket. He scoops up the heat inside the room, carries it through the wall, and pours it outside into the surrounding world. The more heat you have inside, the faster that sailor has to bucket. To be technically precise, that bucket is a special chemical substance, a refrigerant that constantly circulates in a closed loop between the indoor and outdoor units. In the indoor unit, which we call the evaporator, this refrigerant has a very low temperature and pressure. It acts like a dry sponge. As the warm air from your room flows past it, the sponge absorbs the heat. This warms the refrigerant and it evaporates into a gas. This cools the air in the room because it has transferred its heat to the refrigerant. This gas full of absorbed heat then travels through pipes outside to the outdoor unit. There, the heart of the entire system awaits it, the compressor. The compressor compresses the gas. And what happens when you compress something sharply? According to the laws of physics, its temperature skyrockets. The refrigerant thus becomes much hotter than the air outside. It can easily be 60 or 70 degrees Celsius. At that moment, it reaches the outdoor heat exchanger, the condenser, where an outdoor fan blows air through it. Because the refrigerant is hotter than the outside air, the heat naturally escapes outside. The sponge is squeezed out. The refrigerant liquefies, passes through an expansion valve where its pressure and temperature drop sharply, and this whole cycle of bucketing starts all over again. Let's repeat the most important thing. The energy didn't disappear anywhere. The first law of thermodynamics states that energy cannot be destroyed. It can only be transformed or transferred. Air conditioning is therefore just a mover of heat. But for this mover to work, it needs power, electricity for the compressor and fans. And as we will see in a moment, it is precisely this consumed electricity that creates a huge problem that most users have no idea about. Let's now do a brilliant thought experiment where we'll demonstrate the principle of thermodynamics in an absolutely extreme, yet completely logical situation. Imagine it's insanely hot outside. You buy a portable air conditioner. You bring it home, place it in the middle of the room, plug it into an outlet, and turn it on full blast. But you forget, or deliberately refuse, to stick that thick, flexible hot air exhaust hose out the window. You just leave it lying on the floor. You close the windows, you close the doors. What happens to the temperature in the room after an hour of operation? Will the room cool down? Will the temperature stay the same? Or will it increase? Many people will instinctively answer that the temperature won't change. After all, the air conditioner blows ice-cold air from the front and hot air from the back, so it logically cancels out, right? But the correct answer is C. In a short time, this room will turn into an absolute, unbearable sauna. The temperature will shoot up much faster than if you had no air conditioning in there at all. Why? Because the thermodynamic balance is relentless. Imagine that room as a closed box. Energy from the outlet in the form of electricity is constantly flowing into this box. Let's say our portable AC has an electrical power input of 1,000 watts, which is 1 kilowatt-hour per hour. This electricity powers the compressor and two fans inside the device. According to the law of conservation of energy, what does all this electrical work ultimately convert into 100%? Into heat. Mechanical friction in the motor, resistance in the windings, gas compression, all of this generates heat. Yes, the front side may extract heat from the room with a power of, for example, 2,500 watts and blow out cold. But the back side of the exact same box must blow out both the 2,500 watts of extracted heat and additionally add the 1,000 watts of pure heat produced by the compressor itself through its operation. The final effect. An air conditioner without an exhaust hose operates in a closed room as an absolutely perfect 1,000-watt electric heater. It constantly pumps a pure thermal power of 1 kilowatt into the surroundings. To help us imagine just how much this device heats up the room, let's compare it to common things you have at home. One old, classic 100-watt light bulb, which burned terribly when you touched it, radiated heat with a power of about 95 watts. Our hoseless air conditioner heats like 10 of these bulbs turned on all at once in one small room. A large modern LED TV radiates heat into the surroundings at about 100 watts. A running air conditioner without an exhaust is like 10 running TVs in one room. And what about your fridge? A fridge is actually the exact same heat pump. It cools the inside and heats with the grill on the back, but its compressor only has a power of about 100 to 150 watts and doesn't run continuously. Leaving a portable air conditioner running without a hose in a room is like taking 7 to 10 household refrigerators, placing them next to each other, throwing their doors wide open, and letting them run at full power. This experiment beautifully shows us the overall efficiency and reality of cooling. Remember this: cooling is an enormously energy-expensive process. To move heat somewhere, we have to consume a ton of energy, which itself turns into more heat. And if we don't send this heat away, meaning through a hose or an outdoor unit outside the building, it will immediately overwhelm us. Now let's look at a huge difference that people often don't perceive at all, even though it has a fatal impact on how we feel in the summer. When someone says, "I have air conditioning in my office or at home," most people imagine that fresh air from the outside flows into their room, having been cooled by the device along the way. But this is a huge and dangerous misconception. A classic home or office air conditioner, technically referred to as AC, does not work with outdoor air at all. A standard AC works as a closed internal recirculation loop. It takes the air that is already in the room, the one you have already inhaled and exhaled 10 times, runs it over a cold heat exchanger, blows some dust out of it, and throws it back onto your head ice cold. The result: you might be cold in the room, but the concentration of carbon dioxide, or CO2, is skyrocketing. That's why you so often have a headache, feel tired, sleepy, and exhausted in air-conditioned rooms. You are breathing cold but completely stale and dead air. And here enters a completely different league. Systems called HVAC, which stands for heating, ventilation, and air conditioning. A truly sophisticated system whose heart is something called heat recovery. HVAC doesn't just care about making the air cold, but primarily about making it fresh. But how do we do that when it's 35 degrees outside and we don't want to let that insane heat in by opening a window? The magic is called a counterflow or crossflow heat exchanger. Imagine it as a giant labyrinth made of incredibly thin fins stacked closely together. Two completely separate streams of air flow through these fins. In the first channels, air flows from the room outwards, which is stale and full of CO2 but pleasantly cold, let's say it's 21 degrees. In the adjacent channels right behind the extremely thin wall of the fin, air flows from the outside inwards, which is perfectly fresh and full of oxygen, but scorching hot 35 degrees. These two air streams never physically mix together. There is no transfer of odors, bacteria, or stale air. But what happens across that tiny wall? A massive heat transfer occurs. The hot outdoor air transfers its heat through the walls of the heat exchanger to the cold indoor air that we are just throwing out. The result is that air enters our room that is 100% fresh, but is already pre-cooled. Instead of 35 degrees, it might be 24 degrees, and the old, stale air leaves the building well heated. An HVAC with heat recovery is significantly more expensive and complex to install, but in terms of health, comfort, and long-term energy efficiency, it is an absolutely incomparable world to a standard dumb AC. But whether you have a regular AC or advanced HVAC at home, both of these devices have one thing in common. They love electricity. And this is at a time when energy prices are certainly not negligible. But there is one technological marriage that makes such perfect sense in the field of modern living like few other things. The combination of air conditioning and a photovoltaic power plant, or PV. When you heat in winter with a heat pump, you have a huge problem with timing mismatch. You need the most heat in January at night when it's -10 outside, the sun isn't shining, and your solar panels on the roof are covered with snow. You produce zero, you consume maximum. With air conditioning, however, it's exactly the opposite. It's an absolutely perfect synergy, a kind of technological puzzle. When do you need to cool your home the most? Exactly in the middle of a sweltering summer day, from 11 in the morning to 5 in the afternoon. And when do the solar panels on your roof reach the absolute peak of their production? Exactly in those same hours. The sun beats down on your roof, trying to heat up your house through the insulation and tiles. But at the same time, those same sun rays hit the silicon cells and generate massive amounts of electric current. This current flows straight down into your air conditioner's compressor. At that moment, you are cooling your house essentially for free, with clean, 100% green energy straight from your roof. You aren't bothered by overloading the distribution grid. You aren't bothered by buying expensive energy from coal or gas power plants. It is an absolute win-win situation for your wallet and for the planet. But nothing in the world is black and white. And now it's time to leave the comfort of our insulated homes and look outside. Because out there, in the streets of our cities, our comfort is starting to become a matter of life and death. Until now, we've looked at air conditioning from the individual's perspective. I want coolness. I have solar, I'm satisfied. But thermodynamics, as we already know, works globally. Let's calculate the brutal energy balance that we release into the streets of our cities every second. We said that air conditioning does not produce heat, but moves it from inside to outside. And to do this, it consumes electricity, all of which turns into additional heat. Imagine a standard apartment in a block of flats or an apartment building. You want to cool it down. The air conditioner extracts heat from your living room with a power of 3,000 watts. To do this, its compressor takes 1,000 watts of electricity from the grid or solar. A question for a first grader. How much heat does the outdoor unit blow into the street? Yes, exactly 4,000 watts. 4 kilowatts of pure, scorching heat flow from your window onto the sidewalk every second. For an idea, it's like having two giant industrial hair dryers set to the highest heat permanently turned on outside on the facade. And now let's start multiplying. One block of flats, let's say 40 apartments. If half of them, meaning 20 families, buy an air conditioner and turn it on a hot afternoon, this single building pumps a thermal output of 80 kilowatts into its immediate surroundings. That is energy that would be enough to heat a medium-sized village in winter. Let's move to a whole neighborhood. 1,000 running air conditioners mean 4 megawatts of waste heat discharged into the streets. And what about a whole metropolis like Prague, Brno, Bratislava, or God forbid giants like Paris or Madrid? We are talking about hundreds of megawatts, about gigawatts of pure thermal energy that people pump out of their bedrooms and push between the concrete walls of the streets at any given moment. This phenomenon has its scientific name, urban heat island. Concrete, asphalt, and bricks themselves absorb solar radiation and retain heat, and we add a gigantic amount of artificial waste heat from air conditioners to this already scorching environment. Scientific studies, such as the famous research from Arizona State University led by Professor Francisco Salamanca, have brought shocking and precise numbers. The use of air conditioners in modern metropolises increases the average outdoor temperature of the entire city during the night hours by 1 to 2 degrees Celsius. And mind you, we are talking about an average temperature over the entire city, including parks and rivers. The latest microclimatic models from 2024 and 2025 show that in narrow historical European streets, so-called urban canyons, where air circulates poorly, the local temperature can rise by an absolutely insane 5 to 8 degrees Celsius compared to the normal surroundings due to outdoor AC units. And this is exactly where we get into the most terrifying trap, into an absolutely brutal chain reaction, into a vicious circle of positive feedback. Imagine this. You turn on the AC at home to be comfortable. Your outdoor unit blows a massive amount of heat into the street. This heats up the air outside. This extremely hot air rises and heats the walls and windows of your neighbor who hadn't had AC until now or had it turned off. But the temperature in his apartment rises beyond a tolerable level because of you. What does the neighbor do? He goes, buys an AC too, and turns it on. His outdoor unit starts spewing more heat into the street, heating the surrounding air even more. The air in the street is now so hot that your own AC has to work much harder to push the heat out of your apartment at all. Because the greater the temperature difference between the interior and exterior, the lower the efficiency of the AC. It consumes even more electricity, produces even more waste heat, and the temperature in the street rises again. Do you understand the madness? We are literally heating up the outside so we can cool down the inside. The more we cool buildings, the more we heat the city. And the more we heat the city, the more we have to cool buildings. It is a technological spiral of death, which also has an immediate devastating impact on the last living thing left in our cities, urban nature. These artificially created heat waves literally destroy urban flora and fauna. Trees and shrubs in the streets are not built to withstand dry, 60-degree air blowing at them constantly from air conditioners. Tree leaves are literally burned alive, the soil dries rock hard, and the urban greenery, which should be helping us, is dying on a massive scale. Yet the solution to this crisis is right in front of our noses. Physics also works in nature, and millions of years of evolution have invented the most perfect, cheapest, and 100% ecological air conditioning in the world. Plants. When you stand on scorching asphalt, the surface temperature can easily be 60 degrees, but all you have to do is take 10 steps and stand in the shade of a mature tree. The temperature underneath is easily 15 degrees lower. How does the tree do it? Not only does it mechanically block the sun's rays with its shade, it does something much more refined. It sweats. This process is scientifically called evapotranspiration. The tree sucks water from the ground with its roots, leads it to the leaves, and evaporates it into the air through microscopic stomata. And here we get to absolutely fascinating thermodynamic magic. In order for liquid water to turn into vapor, it needs a huge amount of energy, so-called latent heat of vaporization. And where does the water get this heat? It takes it from the surrounding hot air. By evaporating water, the air around the tree physically cools down. A single mature, well-watered tree can evaporate around 400 liters of water in a single day. With this evaporation, it delivers a cooling power of approximately 20 to 30 kilowatts to its surroundings. For an idea, One such tree cools your surroundings exactly like 10 large home air conditioners running at once, but with one gigantic difference. The tree does not need a single watt of electricity to run, and most importantly, it creates no waste heat. It doesn't hide the heat, it consumes it to change the state of the water. If we want to stop the insane spiral of overheating cities, we must radically change the way we think about cities. We have to build so-called blue-green infrastructure. Instead of asphalt parking lots, we need permeable surfaces and lawns. Instead of bare gray roofs, we must build green roofs covered with sedums and grass, which insulate the building so perfectly that you will almost never have to turn on the AC inside. We need to bring water back into the city's fountains, misters, open creek beds, rain gardens that capture water from storms and then gradually evaporate it and cool the air on tropical days. If we use nature to lower the baseline temperature in the city by just 3 degrees, the energy requirements for artificial cooling of buildings will drop by tens of percent. Air conditioners will then not have to run at full power, they will release less waste heat, and we will break the vicious circle we are currently in. What should you take away from today's video? I certainly don't mean that you should go, dismantle your AC, throw it in the trash, and suffer in 38 degrees at home. Technologies are great servants. Air conditioning in combination with solar panels is an amazing engineering success that helps us survive extreme weather fluctuations. But like any technology, here too we must think in a broader context. We cannot isolate ourselves in our chilled cubes and ignore that we are turning the streets below us into an uninhabitable hell. Next time you pick up your AC remote, remember thermodynamics. Don't set it to a nonsensical 18 degrees when it's 35 outside. 24 or 25 degrees is plenty. Your body won't suffer temperature shock. You'll save a ton of energy, and your outdoor unit won't brutally roast the people outside. Use outdoor blinds, ventilate smartly, ideally with heat recovery. And if you have the chance, plant a tree, get a green wall for your balcony, or support green projects in your neighborhood. Because the only city that has a chance to survive the hot future is the one that combines smart technology with the wisdom of nature. How do you cool your homes? Do you have a regular AC or heat recovery? And do you notice in your city how much heat radiates from ACs into the streets? Write it down in the comments. I'd love to read your opinions. If you liked the video, give it a thumbs up, subscribe so you don't miss other scientific and technological breakdowns, and see you next time. Have a great time and stay cool.